Well, howdy and hello. Welcome to Cereal at Midnight. My name is Heath, and this is a big one. This is our 25,000 subscriber Q&A spectacular. Yes, Cereal at Midnight has passed 25,000 subscribers on YouTube. It's a huge deal. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for being here, for watching the videos, for subscribing to the channel, engaging in the comments. At the same time, this channel has also just turned 5 years old. So it's kind of an anniversary, it's a birthday, and it's a party to celebrate the 25,000 subscribers. So I asked for questions from you guys, and you came through in a big way. I've got them all here on my fruit device. And you really asked a ton of great questions, that things I wouldn't normally think to talk about. So this is going to be very informative, and I'm excited to do it. So let's dive right in. Vanessa Bottino, my co-host for Classic Film Flavors, an all-around cool lady, asked, if money was no object, what's the one thing you'd add to your physical media collection without a second thought? Vanessa, when you asked that question, the first thing that popped into my mind was the Dark Shadows box set. That big coffin-shaped box set with the entire Dark Shadows TV series, the soap opera, the horror soap opera from the 60s and 70s. It's the first thing that popped into my mind, and I'll probably never buy it because it's almost $500. And it's interesting, right? Because I've got the Gunsmoke Complete series, which is more discs and it's more content. I think Gunsmoke is the biggest, most ambitious DVD box set ever. But it was only like it was like $180. I think I paid $180 for it or something like that, which is great for 20 years of a TV show. Like, why is Dark Shadows over double that and it's less content? So that's the first thing that popped into my mind. I'll probably never buy it just because it's so expensive. But if money was no object, Dark Shadows. Jamie Mason, 25,000 is a big deal accomplishment. Was there another milestone you felt was big in Cereal at Midnight? And was there a point you considered packing it all in and quitting? Those two. There's more, and I'll get to that in a second. But the first year of the channel was very tough. Here's a brief rundown of Cereal at Midnight, just of me before Cereal at Midnight. I started podcasting in 2007. I was co-host of a geek podcast, Geek Brunch, which is still around, but those early episodes that I was on from 15 years ago, they don't exist anymore. They've long since fallen out of the cloud, I guess. And it's so funny because podcasting is so trendy and hip right now, and people think it's new, but it was really popular starting around 2005, I guess. So podcasting in 2007, and then by 2012, 2013, I was really focusing more on writing, and I started Cereal at Midnight 5 years ago with a focus on the written reviews, right? And the videos were a backup to what I thought the main attraction was, which was those written reviews and the articles and things like that. And YouTube was like, what is this? You're not going to get anything with one video a week. And so I was very discouraged. At the end of a year, we had achieved 1,000 subscribers in roughly 9 months because I was busting my butt with some of this stuff. But I was talking to Bree. My wife, Bree, I credit her as producer because she produces so much behind the scenes. She was like, you need to decide where your loyalties are. If you're going to do this, you need to go all in. Just do as much as you can do. And if you're not, you need to move on to something else. But don't continue to complain about the slow growth if you're not really busting your butt. Even if you're not doing everything you can do, don't complain. And I was like, well, let's see what happens. So I went from 1 video a week to 3 videos a week, and boom, the whole thing opened up. And that's when I learned that YouTube they reward hard work, but if you kill yourself, they'll reward that too, which is one of the other questions here. So Jamie Mason continues this question. Since starting Cereal at Midnight, what are 2 things that surprised you in both a good and a bad way? So I was surprised by how much work is involved and how much this takes. It takes whatever you can give it plus 20% more. Now, if you're just doing it as a hobby and you just want to hey, I bought this and it's really cool and you don't care who watches it, that's different. But if you want to really crack that system and get noticed, it takes more than you're prepared to give it. And then on a positive note, I was really surprised at how there was a certain amount of presentation that I felt like I needed to bring. And this is a presentation, right? This is me turning it up a little bit. This is not how I am. Here's how I am when the camera's not rolling. That's it. Okay, so you turn it up for the camera. But I was surprised that when I'm myself, the weird colored glasses, the fun t-shirts, right? The pop culture t-shirts, the voices and stuff that I do when I'm being myself. I was surprised that people connected with that, because in the early days, like, I'd wear yellow glasses and people were like, I can't even hear what you're saying over your glasses. And that went away pretty quickly. Now I wear whatever, and people don't even comment on that because they're like, that's just Heath being Heath. That was cool. I wasn't expecting that, but that was a nice surprise for me, is that if you are yourself, people will connect with that more than they'll connect with a presentation or like a fake, character or whatever. So the advice from that is, don't pretend to be something that you're not. Be yourself. Turn it up, but be yourself. Horror Movie Syllabus says, what's the most rewarding thing about having your channel, and what's the most challenging, difficult thing about it? Kind of the same thing as the last one. The most rewarding thing is the community that has evolved around this. Also, being able to talk about what I love and make it my job, make it my career. This is what I do. I had a day job, and the pandemic, this is the Undertaker. The pandemic took care of that for me. It was like, no, you're done with that. You're going full time with Serial at Midnight. So that's been tremendously rewarding, but there's challenges with that too. I will say this, Horror Movie Syllabus, when you make your passion and your favorite things that you use to escape and recharge, like movies or video games or music or whatever, when that becomes part of your job, it kind of takes that off the table as something that rests and recharges you, right? So like, if you get a lot of enjoyment from watching horror movies, well, when you make horror movies a part of your job, they're not as rewarding and as recharging anymore. It changes your relationship with those things. You know what I mean? So you have to find other ways, because you'll turn it into work, right? You're like, oh, I love this movie. But then before you know it, everything you're watching, you're turning into work and you're talking about it. And this is like, it's not digging ditches, right? But something to be aware of is that it does change your relationship with these things, and not necessarily for the better. It's not a good or bad thing. It's just a trade-off that you have to make. Leor asks, can you explain what makes a Blu-ray cover great? I know you prefer original posters. Is there anything else? So I picked a few things here. Here's some examples of Blu-ray covers that I don't like. Stuff like this. These weird Photoshop vomit sessions. Like, what? This is so scattered. This is so all over the place. Ghostbusters has one of the most iconic posters ever. Why would you not use that? What is somebody going to connect with this that they're not going to connect with that black poster, the silhouette, either the silhouette of the ghost, of this logo on the black background, or the poster with, our Ghostbusters standing in standing in the black shadow? What is that? It's terrible. Also, here's another terrible one. What is this? Thanks for this weird Photoshoppy. I don't like it. But here's a modern example of something that I do like. This is the Batman Soul of the Dragon release, and it's very 70s. It's deliberately a throwback. You're gonna find that a lot, as I do like throwback. They don't make posters like I like anymore. Everything is just Photoshop floating heads and weirdness. I like art. I like pulp. Here, I pulled this one. I love this one. Quantez. We've got our floating heads, but it's done by an artist. And the composition, so we've got Dorothy Malone here. We've got our writers, and we've got the cast right there. It's everything you really need. And you look at this and you go, okay, it's a Western. It's got Fred McMurray. It's got Dorothy Malone in it. It's got some action, and there's the town of Quantez. It's kind of a summary of the movie all in one image. It can also be done in a way that is surprising. Like, okay, here's Stranger on the Run. This is the Kino Lorber pressing of this movie. So this is a TV movie that never had a poster because it wasn't. It did get a theatrical presentation in other markets, right? But here in America, it came on television. So this is a great presentation because it's drawn, right? It's art, and it's still kind of that floating head composition thing. But again, it kind of tells you everything you need to know. I think it's beautiful artwork too. And it's been created pretty much specifically for that release. The Bad News Bears, this is the imprint version of Bad News Bears. I like this because I love this. This is the iconic original artwork for this. But then they always do the alternative artwork too. So this is, I think I've got a DVD for this movie that has this cover. It's the best of both worlds. And I like, if I can have more pieces of art, But you see, I connect mostly with this, which is the hand-drawn, the artiste cover. This is a great example, too, because I love this new artwork for Flash Gordon, but I wouldn't want to sacrifice that original Flash Gordon artwork, which is good because they've got that inside. Very poster-like, right? So that's kind of what I like. I don't like disembodied floating heads, and I don't like things that are so cluttered you can barely tell what's going on. And then this, that doesn't tell us much about Blade at all. It's an image of Blade. Doesn't tell me much about the movie. So I hope that answers your question. It was kind of hard to pin that down because I am such a fan of pulp covers. Basically, I like things that are hand-drawn. But even if they're not hand-drawn, you can do digital, but make it classy. That's what it comes down to. Make it classy. Terry, so I got some last names here. So I'm going to say, I'll just say Terry F. What are your This Needs a Physical Media Release movies? For me, Darker Than Amber. So the first thing that came to mind when you asked this question was Kiss the Girls and Make Them Die, which is an Italian sort of a spy crime movie with Mike Connors, Mannix. And that is the Italian landscape of the 60s into the 70s is so unrepresented on home media, on DVD. We never even got DVDs for this stuff. I've talked in the past about how spaghetti westerns are just starting to get their due. Peplum, the sword and sandal movies from the late 50s, early 60s in Italy, those are starting to get their due. But there's a solid decade between those, the spaghetti westerns, and then the future, the police movies, the crime movies, the giallo, right? There's a decade in between there with sex comedies and spy movies that were made in Italy with American talent. It's the stuff that in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood that Leonardo DiCaprio goes to make. It's that kind of stuff that didn't really happen. That stuff is not represented on home media at all. And I sincerely hope that it starts to show up. The problem is that a lot of that stuff is in they're in, Giuseppe Franco Martini's, whatever, his vault, right? And they may not be discovered until he dies, and they go, let's clean out the vault. And they're like, hey, here's a print for so-and-so. A lot of this stuff's just missing. And the only thing that exists, if it exists at all, is an old VHS taped off TV sort of a thing. But, we live in optimistic times when anything is possible. So I have high hopes. Kaisercade says, what was the most lucky rare movie find that you found in the wild? That's tough for me because I don't pay super close attention to value or anything like that. But one thing that does come to mind is I scored an original DVD copy of My Neighbor Totoro, the Miyazaki movie, with the original dub. I think it was it Fox? See, when Disney bought the Miyazaki, when Disney bought that catalog, they redubbed everything with newer celebrities and stuff. And the original dub was lost. And I scored the original DVD of My Neighbor Totoro at a thrift store for $2, I think. Maybe it was $3, but I think it was $2. And it was, I don't know, it's $100 value, So that's the first thing. I also a pretty pristine copy of Final Fantasy VII for the PlayStation 1, for $3.99, I think, which is great because that's a hard physical copy to find. The Movie Cheer Podcast. What is your most favorite movie remake? That's tough because I don't love remakes just in general. I'm kind of the mind that if it's already been done, move on and do something else. In fact, I don't have an answer for this one. Let's talk it out together. So I'm thinking a remake needs to bring something to the table that hasn't been done before, that the original didn't have the budget to do. So I'm thinking, okay, so Kid Galahad, the Elvis movie, I was talking to C. Courtney Joyner. That's a movie that goes back. It was the original of the 40s. Anyway, they remake it with Elvis, and it's got Charles Bronson in it. That's a good example because it's been updated. You could go with one of the Star is Born movies, but again, I think the original is the best. This is a really hard question for me because I'm usually if it's already been done, move on and do something else. I'm going to turn it around to you guys. What are your favorite remakes? Oh, you see how I avoid it? I don't have an answer. I really don't. Let's say Kid Galahad. But I'm going to look around really quick and see if I've got any remakes. And I'm like, oh yeah, that one. I don't see anything. Ryan asks, Ryan S. As a massive Beatles fan with a large physical media collection, I noticed you've been quiet regarding the Get Back documentary series. What did you think of the Beatles Get Back? How did it impact your... And then it goes on. But the bottom line is I didn't watch Get Back. I am not... Is Grumpy Heath going to make an appearance? I will watch it. First of all, we didn't have Disney Plus for a long time. We had it for The Mandalorian. We got rid of it. We got it back for The Mandalorian Season 2, which I did not really care for, and I made a video about it. I was like, huh. And then we cut Disney Plus until like a month ago. And we got Disney Plus back because Bree, my wife, I'm sorry. That's anybody that does that in 2022 needs to have a talking to. But we got it because my wife wanted to watch the Marvel shows. She wanted to catch up on WandaVision and all that stuff. And I still haven't watched Get Back. I'm not a fan of what Peter Jackson has turned into. I'm not a fan of him making the Beatles into CGI characters. What he did to the original film is atrocious. It's egregious. I think it's a crime against Beatles scholarship. Taking that lovely, was it 16 millimeter? So I've got Let It Be. Like most Beatles fans have Let It Be somewhere in their collection. The documentary, not the soundtrack. Soundtrack, you've the movie, the album. You've got Let It Be. You've got Let It Be Naked. You've probably got a lot of bootlegs. You've got the Beatles anthology stuff. I have a bootleg of Let It Be, and seeing how he's taken that footage and just turned it into like a PlayStation 5 game, it's so upsetting to me. I can't even... So that's part... Like, it's hard for me to reconcile that this guy who is used to be a pillar of the horror community, Dead Alive, right? That's the one that everybody loves. It's great. It's an endurance test. That he has become this monument to fakery. So... Yeah, I didn't watch it. I will at some point. I'll probably just wait for the Blu-rays to come out. It's got the full rooftop concert in it, and I guess I should have an official version of that, but that's the answer to that question. He also had a kind thing to say. He really liked my review of Batman, 1989. It was a retro review mixed with film analysis, the history of the filmmaking, impact of the film both on the industry and personally. I do plan to do more of that, starting with Batman Returns. The problem with that is those videos take a lot of time and a lot of planning, and the path that I'm in, whereas like a reporter of what's coming out, like talking about being in a privileged position to talk about everything that's coming out, like I really want to focus. That takes up so much of the time and the energy of the channel, reporting on the new stuff, because I want you guys to know about it, and I want you to know if it's worth your money is basically what it comes down to. But I do like 2022, I want to be more of a year for me getting my own voice out there with my own... I love discs, right? I'm a huge physical media collector, but for me, the discs are a delivery system. They're not the end-all... people fetishize the discs, and that's just a delivery system. It's what's on the disc that's really important. So for me, being able to talk about movie history, and be able to talk about what those movies meant, I want you to go watch more movies, I want you to watch more movies and TV shows, and that's my goal. And the discs are one way to do that, but I also just want to talk about movies. I don't want to limit this channel to just disc talk, and so I want to do more of that in 2022, but it's always a challenge because I've only got so much time, and if I'm doing 3 to 4 videos a week of new arrivals, that takes up a lot of the space, right? And I wouldn't trade that for anything, just for the record. I wouldn't trade that because it's a wonderful position to be in. John Paul C is what I'll say. I work at a library and have been noticing the increase lately in the number of young people checking out DVDs and Blu-rays. And on top of that, there's word of a video store opening up not too far from me. So my question is, could we be on the precipice of a small video store revival? Obviously, it'll never be changed like Blockbuster again. But do you think it could get to where record stores have gotten, where it's not that hard to find it if you know where to look? I don't think so, but it's possible. I think with streaming... See, I think the revival... You got a couple of things, right? You've got the VHS fetishization, which is what it is. It's like, it's this thing, this tangible thing. Because there's no argument that a VHS is a superior presentation. But people connect with the tangibility of that. And I think that's really cool. But it's still super, super subculture. Records sell better than digital. in my opinion. If you put a record next to a stream, the record sounds better, way better. MP3s can't hold their own. The compression, the clipping, all that stuff. A record is this huge open spectrum. So I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I kind of have a hard time thinking that that's possible when it's all floating around in the cloud right now. But it'd be cool if it happened. I don't see any signs of that in my area, both my physical area and my area of expertise here. I don't really see a resurgence in the young people. I will say this. We watched The Shawshank Redemption with Minnie Midnight, my daughter, who is 16. We watched that recently with her to show it to her. And she was like, wow, this looks and sounds really good on a TV. She's like, I'm so used to watching things on my phone. This looks really good. But she could have gotten that from a stream. Stream's not going to hold up to a 4K Blu-ray presentation, which is what we were watching. But I don't know. But that's my thoughts on it. It'd be cool if it did happen. Grubby Raccoon had the same question as Adrian James, which was, what are some of my favorite British TV shows? I think Grubby tied it to my collection, but I'm a fan of shows that aren't in my collection, so I'll also just say, huge Doctor Who fan. Red Dwarf, Monty Python, Black Books, Little Britain. French and Saunders, I like that stuff. Fawlty Towers, all the classics that you would think of. I also like the old educational programs like Blue Peter. When that stuff pops up, that's cool to me. What are some more modern things? See, when you get more modern, I start to drop off a little bit because it's just not the same. Merlin, I enjoyed Merlin, and I am enjoying. I'm watching it on Blu-ray from Viavision out of Australia. What else? Robin Hood was okay. The Robin Hood TV series. My personal tastes are going to be 70s, 80s, 90s, and I guess for comedy it gets into the early 2000s. Jekyll, the TV series Jekyll, I really enjoyed. This wasn't just sitcoms, was it? No. Yeah, that's good enough. That's a good overview of the stuff that I like, but it's not just limited to that. There's way more. Benny Hill, any variety show adjacent kind of a thing. I really like that. Okay. Eduardo C. Which animated TV series that's geared to children did you find to be the funniest overall, even as a grown-up watching today? SpongeBob SquarePants took me by surprise. I knew about it for ages and ages, and I did not enjoy it. And in fact, I remember going circa 2003, 2004, something like that, to, I think it was Six Flags in Atlanta, and there was a SpongeBob attraction. It was like you walk in, and it's like was it a roller coaster? Maybe it was a roller coaster, but you walk in and they show you like a SpongeBob short, like before you get on. It's like, I can't hear you kids, but lives in a pineapple under the sea. And like everybody in the room was like, SpongeBob SquarePants. They're just loving it. And I'm just like, I hate this. This is stupid. I'm an adult. Because SpongeBob came on when I was an adult. I might have even been married at the time. And around 2-3 years ago, SpongeBob was just like, hey buddy. And I was like, wait a minute, this is genius. And then I think it started with a Jim Morrison joke. Like I was watching an episode and Patrick says, I'm the Lizard King. And I was like, wait a minute, that's not for kids. And then the barrier the whole time was me. It wasn't the show. It was me and my stuffy, like, I'm too old for this. And then, of course, the older you get, the more you go back to, you're like, I'm not too old for this. This is great. You get younger as you get older, right? So that's happened. But SpongeBob, I have become a huge SpongeBob fan. Love SpongeBob. But I didn't grow up with SpongeBob. I didn't like SpongeBob for a couple of decades. So that's the answer to that one. Will in... Aside from the foreign imprint and indicator labels, what are other foreign labels also play in our region A-locked players? Thinking of other labels such as Umbrella Entertainment and Eureka. Yes, those two. Viavision does a lot of stuff that's region free. Most companies, you got Indicator down here, but Indicator has started region locking just about everything. They squeak one out every now and then that's not region locked, but I think at the request of the studios that they partner with, they have been asked to lock things. But I think most of I'm trying to think what other labels there are. So 88 Films, right? They've just started to reach out to the U.S. market, and I'm covering those. Um, who's left? I do have a Eureka. I don't have a lot of Eureka, so I can't speak too much to that. I do have a Eureka pressing of Fright Night. And I think I've got a German edition of The Neverending Story that's also region free, possibly. So that was tough for me because because I know so many of the people that work at the labels, like they don't want to region lock things. Usually that comes at the request of the studios. Network in the UK, they just lock everything. And I don't know what's up with that. Why, guys? I have the network edition of Space 1999. Season 1 is region free. Season 2 is locked. What's that about? That's the best I can answer that one. Alaskan Panda. My question, have you ever felt guilty ordering movies or shows when you first get your money and are tight on cash with other priorities for things you need to buy? I have in the past. The truth is I don't buy a lot these days because I'm in this very fortunate position where my job is as a reviewer. But yeah, I would say it probably when I was 20, 25, I did do that a lot, probably even close to 30. But you reach a point with a family and a mortgage and children, and that'll help you put things in perspective really quick, where it's not just like, oh, I can eat ramen noodles this week because I really want this Blu-ray of so-and-so. When it's not just about you and it's about other people, that gets harder to justify. You know what I mean? Once you're like, oh, I have to scrimp on groceries because I spent too much on this other thing. I have, for sure. It cost me a relationship at one point in time with a young lady. I have a horrible memory of... Why am I sharing this? I was in my car when I got out to pump gas, and my girlfriend at the time went through my checkbook while I was pumping gas, and she saw that I had placed an order with the Sci-Fi Book Club for, it was like $50 or something like that. She was like, I got in the car after pumping gas, and that was a tough conversation. So yeah, the answer is yeah, I have. Marie C. This is Marie from, hi Marie, love you guys. Is Kino your biggest boutique collection? You don't have to count them all. Thank you yes, Kino is my biggest boutique collection. The last I counted, it was over 300. I don't know how many it is now because they just keep putting out awesome stuff, and now I review so many of those discs. And I'm in a position where I'm able to actually talk to you guys about everything that they're putting out. So that would definitely be the one. But Imprint is coming up fast because we're over 120 or something like that Imprint releases. And then what's your favorite Disney movie? I think it's Hercules. There's another one where I loved Disney as a kid, and then I became a teenager, and I was like, oh, I'm too old for that now. And then I had this, I remember I was at work. I got a job the day I turned 16, my parents were like, have a great birthday. Tomorrow you go apply for a job. And that was true. So I've been working ever since. The day after, I was 16 years old, maybe I was 17, talking to a guy at work at this grocery store that I was working at. And he was a huge fan of Hercules and the Hunchback of Notre Dame. And he was cool. He was like in a band. He had bleached hair. He was like the earrings and stuff. He was cool. And he was like, oh, I love Disney. I was like, Disney? Aren't you a little old for that? He was like, what's wrong with you? Get over yourself. And I was like, what? He was like, have you seen blah, 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 blah? And I was like, no. And he's like, why don't you check him out? And I did. And Hercules was the first one of those that I watched. And I was like, well, this is amazing. I love the art style. I love the unconventional humor. I love the superhero story, being a comic book kid. And I have never been that way about things again. That just reminded me that like the only barrier to a lot of this stuff is you. So get out of your own way and just have fun. This is The Road. Would love to hear a short take on two of my favorite films, Manhunter from 1986 and Phase 4 from 1974. Have you seen them? And if so, what you thinking? So I've never seen Phase 4, so I guess I need to, right? Manhunter 1986. That's good. Solid. So what do we want to say about that? I read all the books too. There was a phase where I was going through all those Thomas Harris books. Manhunter, based on Red Dragon, right? And then the Red Dragon book, which then they later readapted as another. They did Red Dragon with Anthony Hopkins, right? Because it introduces the Hannibal Lecter character. This is like 20 years ago. That's right? And it's Brian Cox is Hannibal Lecter, right? who now is doing McDonald's commercials. I'm like, man, what? Ba 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 ba. I'm loving it. Like, thanks, Brian Cox. That's cash. Get your money, man. Get your money. And then dude from CSI. What's his name? I can't. William Peterson. I remember liking it. I haven't seen it in years and years, but I remember liking it. I enjoyed the books. I don't know if I have a favorite of those Hannibal. Is it trilogy? That's all I can say. I've hit bottom on my Manhunter, but I watched it and I liked it. Riley Bob, do you think you'll find or have an end to collecting physical media before the death of it, or will you ride it? Or will you ride or die till the end? Well, see, I don't think it's going to end. Not totally. Now, we are definitely in a physical media golden age where so much, TV movies are getting deluxe Blu-ray presentations with new special features and all kinds of cool stuff. We're in a moment. We're witnessing something unprecedented right now. But I don't think it's ever going to go away because it's always been around. You go back to the Super 8, when people would collect the Super 8 presentations, the 8mm, that you project on your wall or on a curtain or whatever. And then that adapted into Laserdisc, which was huge. And from Laserdisc, it's never looked back. It's never slowed down. Laserdisc, VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, now 4K. I don't think it's going to slow down, and a mainstream interest is really niche, but there are more movies that exist than will probably ever get a Blu-ray presence, a home media presentation. You know what I mean? So I don't know. One way or the other, I'm in this. My loyalty is to movies. I guess I'm a film historian in training. I'm in the early days of, I've been a lifelong fan of this stuff, but when you look at most film historians, they're like 50, 60, 70. I'm not there yet, but that's where I'm going. That's the path that I'm on, is film history. It's what I'm interested in. So as long as I have access to these films, and let's be honest, most of them aren't on Netflix, Hulu, the Criterion Channel is great, but it's so limited. At one point in time, I had more movies on my shelves than Netflix had on their platform, and that's the truth. So I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. And I don't really think physical media is going to go anywhere either. But if it does, I'll still be here because I'm not in love with the discs. As I said, I'm not in love with discs. I'm in love with what's on the discs. And if that's how I have to see a movie, that's the best way for me to see a movie, I will be there every time. Tim A, what are your most wanted titles, movies or TV that have never seen a Blu-ray release, or better yet, never even been released on DVD? That's kind of and they also, as much as we have, there's still so much missing. I'm going to go back to Kiss the Girls and Make Them Die, to spy movies of the 60s. There's a lot of stuff that we're still missing. But TV movies, I talked to Amanda Reyes, who's a TV movie historian. So much respect for her and her knowledge. And she was talking about how there's just hundreds of movies that were made for TV by capable directors, capable writers, name talent, name actors and stuff. And it's just completely unrepresented. It may be on YouTube, but, I'd love to see more of that stuff. I want Italian cinema, and I want more TV movies. Let's go with that. HP Productions. What is your all-time favorite childhood cartoon show, and is it still your favorite cartoon show as an adult? So probably Batman the Animated Series, which it was appointment television for me every single day. It came on, I think it came on at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, and I would race home to see it. And if in the rare occasion that I couldn't be home to watch it, I would try to find. I remember one time I had to go to the doctor with my mom for some checkup, and so she picked me up from school and we went to the doctor's office. And in the waiting room, I turned the TV to Fox so I could see Batman the Animated Series. So that one I still revere, and deservedly so, right? I would also shout out the X-Men Animated Series, but it's not, I have a tremendous affection for that, but it's not quite the same milieu as Batman the Animated Series. Jason P. If you could bring back Tony Curtis as a hologram, what modern project would you cast him in? I don't know. I wrestle with this. I don't know. What if Tony Curtis was the Batman? He's like, the shadows off of me. the shadows are to hide. I wear the black. I'm losing my Tony Curtis. Let me get Tony Curtis. In yonder valley lies the castle of my father. Or is it? I've heard two verses. Yonder valley, and then yonder lies the castle of my father. I don't even know the lines from the Batman, but wouldn't that be funny? Tony Curtis as the Batman. Underneath the bridge, I wear the black. Alfred, you know my father, Alfred. Go away. You know my father. And yonder valley lies the castle of my father, who is not Alfred. Okay. Terry W. What? And we got a two-part. No, it's a three-parter. What movie would be greatly improved if it was remade as a musical? Silence of the Lambs. Number 2. Who was driving the boat in the final scene in Taken 1? I've seen that movie once, maybe twice, and it was when it was new. Let's say Tony Curtis is driving. What was the final score in the football game Escape to Victory? 26-12. Logic Blaster. Do you enjoy the films of director John Carpenter? And if so, do you have a favorite of his films? Heck yeah, I enjoy John Carpenter. He's one of my favorite directors, probably top 5. There's a commentary on this channel for They Live. Go check that out if you haven't. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Logic Blaster. Yeah, I love John Carpenter. I'm a huge fan of the first Halloween movie. You know, that run there from the late 70s to the early 90s, I guess. I don't know, probably up to Prince of Darkness. The best is probably The Thing. You know, I love Escape from New York, but The Thing is just a perfect little creation. Those practical effects and then the ambiguous ending and Kurt Russell with a beard. Looking kind of like, you know, maybe I got a Kurt Russell thing going on here with the longer hair and the beard. I don't know. I never thought about that. It's not intentional, but it's on my wavelength, you know. They Live was prophetic, and it's amazing to me that not enough people are talking about how what They Live predicted is what we're living now, where we are all controlled by the media, and nobody seems to mind. Everybody's okay with it. Consume, obey, and people are like, okay. Sounds good to me. So all that comes through in my commentary. I did it with Josh Jeb Kuga, the adapting writer of Bubba Hotep and the Cosmic Bloodsuckers. He wrote 3 projects at IDW Comics, and now he works for AEW, the All Elite Wrestling. We did that together. So if you haven't heard that, that's more Carpenter goodness for you. And because Josh loves Roddy Piper so much, he named his kid after Roddy Piper. All right, Colin S. What's your favorite exploitation film, and who's your favorite exploitation director? This is tough. So it's going to probably be a 3-way tie. I've got Sam Katzman, Nicholson, and Arkoff from AIP, and Roger Corman. The 3 of those cats basically invented what we now think of as like the modern exploitation subgenre. Katzman in the 40s, in the 50s, and then, you know, Corman picks it up in the 50s, and Nicholson and Arkoff make it an art form in the later 50s and into the 60s and into the 70s. I don't know about a favorite movie. That's hard. Favorite movies are really hard for me to pick, and the answer today might be different from the answer tomorrow. I honestly don't know. The whole catalog, you know, those Vincent Price movies for American International, the Poe cycles, those are great. And then what Katzman was doing with the Jungle Jim movies, I love that stuff. And Corman, you know, like, I mean, well, hey, there's a crossover too, because Corman doing the stuff at AIP. There's an unholy union. I can't. That's a good answer, right? I'm giving you like a whole list of things. That's how my brain tends to work, in lists of things and in clusters, not one thing. It's like the whole tapestry of that whole wave from the. And I'll reference you again to the Cold War Creatures box set, which is my favorite release of 2021. Horrible sci-fi movies. They're not horrible. They're wonderful, but they're viewed as horrible. You know what? I think we've got a question that touches on that, so I'm going to save it to be continued in just a few minutes. Zach, that scoundrel, what's your favorite music-related film in your collection? Concert, documentary, etc. Probably the Beatles anthology. We only have it on DVD. I'd love to have it on Blu-ray, but I don't know that the source elements exist for that. But love the Beatles anthology. Watch it every few years. Had it on VHS. And that's one that I've been watching since, you know, the 90s. Just great stuff. I also love the Beatles 1 Blu-ray, which is all those it's like a deluxe edition Blu-ray version, and it's basically all the promotional films that the Beatles made. So you got, you know, Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields and live performances from the Ed Sullivan Show, stuff like that. I love that stuff. That's first thing that came to mind. Damian P. Are there issues you struggle with when reviewing titles that have been sent to you for review? Your coverage is well balanced. No, not really. First of all, if I'm reviewing it, I probably asked for it. I probably asked to review, which means I already have a relationship with it. Or at best, at worst, I wanted to see it and talk about it. But there are things that I get to review that I didn't ask for, and it's not up my alley. And in those instances, I'll just say, here's the trick. Well, you got the sandwich compliment, right? Or the compliment sandwich. This has great photography and great performances. This aspect, it's not well written, but it also has good production or something like that. You compliment your sandwich compliment sandwich. So am I hungry? But also, if I'm talking about something that I know you guys are into, but I'm not, I'll say, like, I know you guys love when so-and-so, and there's a lot of horror fans out there that love this. If I'm not making I statements, I probably didn't connect with it. And sometimes this stuff's made by people that I know and respect and I enjoy and appreciate. So I don't want to be, and you don't want to burn any bridges. And I also don't want to talk you guys out of coming into something fresh or like open. But if I really don't like something, I'll tell you. The only thing I can really think of is I reviewed Sky Sharks. And I hated it. I thought it was the stupidest, like, it's just not for me. It was the equivalent of Red Bull, like just a massive marathon of Red Bulls with no real point, purpose, or theme. That movie, the things that I want from a movie, which are stories and characters that start in one place and go to somewhere else, the movie's not concerned with that. The movie is concerned with throwing as many crazy, it feels like it started as a meme, right? And I think it did. It was like, hey, wouldn't it be crazy if people flew sharks during World War II? And that then got like crowdfunded and they made this movie, and it just was not for me. I love exploitation movies. I love, horror. I love all that stuff. But I was just like, this is not an idea. This is the beginning of an idea that needed way more fleshed out. So I did say, like, I think in my review, I was like, this wasn't for me, but I know a lot of you guys are going to love it. And a lot of you guys did. So, you just be tactful, right? You just got to use tact and know that just because I don't like something doesn't mean you won't. And just because you like something doesn't mean that I will. And that's okay. But I do genuinely find a lot to appreciate about most of what we talk about because I asked for it. And they're labels that we don't talk about here most of the time. And there's a reason for that. Enough said. Okay. Justin L says, how many movies do you think you have in your collection? It's upwards of 5,000. I have the app. People ask this too. They're like, what do you use to catalog your software? What software do you use to catalog your collection? CLZ movies and CLZ comics. I use both of those for comics and movies. But the problem is, it's not a problem. Because I'm reviewing things often before they come out, it's not in the database yet, and I don't have the time to sit there and manually input it. So there are hundreds of things that aren't in the database, and I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm just like, I'll wipe it clean and start over at some point. And at that point, it was like 4,600 when I stopped doing that. So it's around 5,000. And I'm in the process of trying to get some of this stuff out, because a lot of it, there are things here that I'll never watch again. That comes up in a second too. Flasberry, what are your top guilty pleasure movies that you always go back and watch time and time again? It's the old monster movies. It's I love B movies. I love low budget movies. When I say exploitation, I think I don't mean like giallo exploitation or like 42nd Street exploitation. I mean like 50s exploitation, where like we've got a rubber suit monster and we've got this set for 2 days. Let's bang this thing out. That's what I really love, that kind of stuff. Black and white horror movies, space movies, like Invaders from Mars, like all that stuff. I love the video game Destroy All Humans. That is my jam. And that was formed in the 90s, discovering things on channels that, just tuning in the dial and be like, what is this? That's my comfort food. And I don't feel guilty about it, but I know what you mean. Griff Redux, your name on here is Cereal at Midnight. What's your favorite cereal? Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And Griff, if you haven't seen it, there's a playlist of cereal reviews right here on this channel. Let me say this really quick. Not that this ties into anything necessarily. If you guys are subscribed to this channel, if you're watching this channel, but you're only watching the videos that are being suggested to you by YouTube, please break that cycle and go to my YouTube homepage, because I've got a couple of dozen, actually I think 3 dozen, maybe even more, curated playlists. The best of year 1, the best of year 2, cereal reviews, physical media reviews, cool locations. Every time I've gone to a cool place, that's in a playlist. Music related stuff, record collecting videos. I've got so many playlists, interviews with people. But if you watch an unboxing video, when you get done with that video, YouTube's going to go, here's another unboxing video from the same person. And you get caught. Somebody asked me one time, they're like, all you ever do is open stuff. I'm like, there's someone that 1 is not subscribed and 2 is not checking out the channel. They're only watching what's being fed to them because the YouTube algorithm wants to feed you more of what you're already consuming, right? They live, obey, consume. Break that cycle. There's a ton of stuff here. There's over 800 videos here on this channel. And there's even more than that if you're Patreon subscribed. If you're a Patreon subscriber, there's about 120 more, including collection tours and collecting at midnight videos and all kinds of cooking videos with Brie, all kinds of stuff that's not on this channel, but that I made and that people have been watching and enjoying. So shake those chains off, those YouTube chains, and consume what you want to consume on your own terms, which is why we collect this stuff in the first place. Cinema Dave Media. If you could have been behind the scenes on 1 or 2 films, which would they be and why? Wizard of Oz and Casablanca. Wizard of Oz because it's such a wonderful, timeless fantasy, and they brought that world to life so incredibly. And Casablanca because that movie has a notorious history. They're like, didn't have a finished story. They're making it up as they go along, and yet it became one of the greatest movies of all time. Certainly to me, in my opinion. I love Casablanca. And how they achieved greatness without the pieces for greatness is fascinating to me. Honorable mention, Touch of Evil, the Orson Welles movie that was notoriously taken from him and recut and all this stuff. We do know most of that story thanks to the recent, the home media releases that have like replicas of the letters and stuff like that. But to have been there, could you imagine being Orson Welles' friend at that time, being on set and seeing this stuff happening as it was unfolding? It'd be crazy. Dead Clown 6. What kind of containers would you recommend for transporting large collections to a new home? Last time I moved, I just used boxes. I used cardboard boxes, like egg boxes. And it wasn't as big as all this, but that's what I used. I guess you could also go with Rubbermaid containers, but they're more expensive, and I don't know that they're necessary because movies don't actually weigh that much. That's what I used. That's all I can say. That's what I used. What about you? You got any better suggestions out there for Dead Clown 6? Tina P. Well, we got 2-parter. 1, what's your go-to holiday season movie? I really like Jingle All the Way. Unironically, I really like it because it's about an action figure. It represents, now I was a teenager when that movie came out, but it does represent a certain aspect of my own childhood experience where like the Tubman action figure, Jamie. Like I love that idea of just like, well, here's the hot toy, we've got to find it, we've got to get it, and then like just the silliness and like who's in it and the Big Show, the rest of the Big Show's in it, right? Last Christmas we watched Die Hard, but we don't watch it every year. I could tell you like not movies, but I do love Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas, and I do like all the Henson stuff that I grew up with when I was a kid. I tend to do the specials more than I do movies. So Rudolph and then all the Rankin Bass stuff. Those are big for me. You got to remember, I grew up in the 80s. I was born in 79. There you go. So I was born in 79. So my memories of childhood are the 80s. And that's what we were watching. We were watching Rudolph. And we were watching, every year I watch Will Vincent's Claymation Christmas too. Not a movie, it's a TV show. But every year I watch that. I have a bootleg copy of it on a hard drive, and I watch it every single year. And that just takes me back. It doesn't matter how many years go by. I love it. 2, what's your take on remakes of popular movies, i.e. Halloween and serializations like The Exorcist? I don't love them. Go back to the remake conversation from earlier. Like, I don't watch a lot of remakes, and when I do, I'm like, why? Because somebody didn't want to watch black and white. You know, why? Like, Halloween is a perfect movie. I think John Carpenter's Halloween is a perfect movie. The fact that there's 13 or 14 of those movies, it's kind of ridiculous. Not that I don't enjoy them, but what Rob Zombie did with Halloween, and I don't want to get myself in hot water here, but I'm just like, why did they want to remake this instead of let Rob Zombie go create something else on his own? He's got the gear for that, and now he's doing the monsters, right? And I'm just like, well, what does Rob Zombie have creatively that he can give us? Does Rob Zombie have a family-friendly, PG-rated horror spooky tale that's not connected to an IP already? It's this weird world we're living in where nobody wants to develop new IPs. They just want to rehash the intellectual properties that already exist. Well, this has name recognition, so let's tap into this. But nobody's really creating a lot of new stuff. And when they do create new stuff, then that turns into the new IP. You know, it was cool when we were getting the Paranormal Activity movie. Like, the first one was cool, but then they're like, oh, here's 7 more. Saw, cool concept. Do we need as many as we have? New things are rewarded by being watered down. That's not new. It's always been that way. But I don't watch a lot of that stuff. And I don't enjoy it when I do, most of the time. So, grumpy guy in his 40s talking about how things were better when he was younger. I don't know if that's true. They weren't better when I was younger, but there was a purity. You go back to the 80s, and there were so many... Now, I know what Quentin Tarantino says, but the 50s and the 80s were explosions of creativity. And what I grew up with in terms of The Goonies and Back to the Future and, you know, the Rocketeer comes to mind. That's the 90s. But there was such, and I realize that's a comic book adaptation, but there was such a, like, it was all fresh. So much of what was happening then was fresh, and we'd never seen anything like it before. Now, sometimes in the case of the Rocketeer, that leads you to older things. It would maybe leads you to King of the Rocket Men, or maybe leads you to an Errol Flynn movie. But it was new. It existed before that. It was like a package of influences, but it was relatively fresh. And it's been a long time since I felt something was really fresh. Part of that's my age. Scott P, can you name your top 3 Clint Eastwood films? Unforgiven, right? That's a given. Ha ha ha. Probably The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Outlaw Josie Wales, and then they're all westerns, right? Let me throw in Breezy. That's one that Clint Eastwood directed. Breezy, and it's a fair. We put Clint Eastwood in a box. He's talking to invisible chairs at the Republican National Convention or whatever. People want to like, well, this guy is this. Clint Eastwood is not any one particular thing. Nobody is any one particular thing. People don't belong in a box. Clint Eastwood is this bastion of masculinity. He's this, you know, very conservative, very like, you know, we want to believe he's the guy from Gran Torino, but he's not. Look at Gran Torino. That's a sympathetic view of the immigrant story, right? And like, he did this movie called Breezy in the early 70s, I think it was, and it's a fairly sympathetic look at a lost hippie girl who's like just trying to. She's an outcast. She's trying to find her way, and it's so soft and gentle. And he directed it, and he's got one cameo where he kind of walks across the bridge, Hitchcock style, but it's not what you expect from what you think Clint Eastwood is. And I like when these guys go like, yeah, I am, you know, cry macho, right? Where he's like, you get to the end of your life, what is macho? What does that mean? Like, that's cool. That's a cool reflection. He's not this one thing. He has facets to his personality. And I like Breezy because it's another aspect that we didn't see a lot. Sympathetic, sweet towards something that I don't think he agreed with at all. But that doesn't mean that he villainized the people that were in that movement. So, and again, not that I necessarily agree with that either, but it's just an interesting way to see someone telling a story in a way that you don't expect them to. Makes sense? So, we're almost done here, guys. Be in Chile. I think that's how... I know this user, but I don't know how to pronounce the username. So do you keep everything you get sent? What do you do with your doubles? If you have it on Blu-ray and get a 4K, do you get rid of the blue? And if you do, where can I buy them? A lot of the time... So the truth is I did a video about this late 2021 where I was like, I'm out of room. And I am out of room, and I'm still out of room, and there's stuff stacked up all over the floor that you can't see, and it's very embarrassing, so I'm not going to show you. But there's stacks of stuff everywhere. I can't get it out fast enough. The 4K replacing Blu-rays, I have an eBay store. Check out the Cereal at Midnight eBay store. It's linked in every video that I put up. If you get down to the video description, it's linked there, the eBay store. There's nothing on it right now. I got to get back on it, but it's so time consuming to do this stuff. And all my energy is going into these videos and for the reviews at the site. But I've got to get better about carving out time to sell this stuff, because it needs to finance the channel, because that's the only, there's no real income coming in here except for Patreon support. Google ad revenue is infinitesimal. It's very small. And so I need to be selling this stuff to support the channel. So the eBay store is the answer for that. And you can find the link in the description of this video. Chris B, what's your favorite Sidney Lumet film? Are your top three? Network is the one, right? Again, it predicted where we are today. Nothing has changed. It's been almost 50 years and nothing has changed. Ned Beatty gives a speech in Network that is verbatim how the industry, the news industry, the news entertainment. I was going to say the entertainment, but it's the news industry. But all the news outlets, right? And it's not just the ones you're thinking of. It's not just Fox News, or it's not just CNN. It's all the news outlets. It's all the talk shows. It's everything. It's American Idol. It's America's Got Talent. It's Britain's Got Talent. All the outlets everywhere, they hate us and they control us through what they show us. And Ned Beatty gives a speech in that movie that explains how the media feels about the public. And it has not changed. And it should be taught in schools, but to teach it in schools would be to arm the public with the knowledge to break the cycle. And that's not the game, right? So Network, Serpico. Love Serpico, Al Pacino. I like his role in Serpico better than I like The Godfather. Everybody's talking about The Godfather right now because it just came out on 4K. I don't love those movies. I think Serpico is a better Pacino performance. De Niro's great in The Godfather Part 2, but that movie is so long and it really has some sagging, dipping, slow parts. And we're not going to talk about Part 3. Night Falls on Manhattan. That's a great movie. It's Andy Garcia. In fact, it's up here somewhere. Hey. Night Falls on Manhattan, Andy Garcia. Sort of a meditation on the inevitability of corruptibility. How no matter what your intentions are, you will eventually become a part of the system, even if you don't want to be. It's a very interesting movie about that. And the 12 Angry Men, right? That's, again, a study of human nature. We haven't changed. We won't change. It's all there. Joe H. Okay, this is a personal question. Feel free to ignore it if you think it's inappropriate. Well, I'm reading it, Joe. After your videos, I often wonder what you do for a living. You own 1 million Blu-rays and you seem to spend an enormous amount of time watching movies. Are you a professional movie reviewer? Do you work in the business? Are you a lottery winner? Are you just better at budgeting your time and money than I am? And then there's a follow-up question. This is what I do for a living. I think earlier in the video I said that I had a day job, but the pandemic killed it. So I put all my focus, all my energy into Cereal at Midnight. This is what I do. But the downside of that is there's no income really. We are Patreon supported, we're viewer supported. So all the income that I get is coming from Patreon. The discs that you see me reviewing are sent for me to review. I am a reviewer. I'm a professional reviewer. That's what I do. I have wonderful relationships with so many of the studios and the distributors, but the downside of that, so I get to watch the movies, I get to talk about the movies at no out-of-pocket expense most of the time for myself. But that doesn't keep the lights on. That doesn't pay the house payment. That doesn't put food on the table. So we are viewer supported. And you can go to Patreon. Guys, if you're watching this, we could use your support. We really could. Patreon.com/CerealAtMidnite. It's in a I've put everything in my power behind this channel to make it a success, to make it to make it my career, so that I can do this forever moving forward and continue to grow this. But we do need help for that, and we do need you guys. And it helps that you're watching these videos and that you're subscribing. That does help with a little bit with the ad revenue. But if you can do more, our top level Patreon support is $7. And again, that gets you access to the 100 plus videos, plus access to the special Facebook group that's pumping and bumping all day long. And you're making this, when I say thank you to the Patreon supporters for making this channel possible, I mean, it really is. They're the ones that are, when I do this every day, 7 days a week, sometimes 12 hours a day, that's what's paying the bills, the physical actual bills, the light bill, the water bill. That's where it's coming from. There is no other source for that. This is 100% of my energy every day. So other questions: on average, how many movies do you watch per week? It depends. I've watched as many as 6 in a day, and then there are some times when, just because it takes a lot of time to do what I do. As I said just a second ago, it's like 12 hours a day some days, most days. Start at 6 a.m. I'm usually going 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Every video you see on the channel has at least 3 hours in it. Some have closer to 10. So that's taken up a lot of time in that day. And then maybe I'll just only get to watch one thing at the end of the day, and then that's the next day's review. That's what I'm reviewing the next day, or writing or talking about. So everything is in service of the channel, but some days I have more time than others. So, and do you do any streaming at all, or is it 100% physical media? I do stream. I do not think that streaming is the enemy. I think that streaming and physical media serve two very different goals. And, I stream, since we have Disney Plus right now, I'm streaming like Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, the cartoon shows from the 80s and the 90s that I grew up with. I don't stream a lot of movies, but sometimes we do. If there's a lot of original content out right now. Like, we need to watch that Lucy, not the terrible, the overly earnest Lucy Desi, the Nicole Kidman, Javier Bardem, not that one, no. The Amy Poehler documentary about Lucy that actually capitalizes on why she was special and why Lucille Ball is one of the funniest women that ever walked the face of the earth. We need to watch that. And that's not on physical media anywhere, so I'm fine streaming that. Again, I don't see streaming as an enemy. If I want to watch, Night Falls on Manhattan, I've got the disc for that, and I don't have to go hunt it. Because, the secret with streaming is that you end up with like $100. Like, you haven't replaced your cable bill. You have Hulu, Netflix, Paramount Plus, all the ones. You have them, and then you're like, wait a minute, I spent $100, and the thing has shifted. So we don't have all those platforms. We have a few of them, and Bree streams almost exclusively. My wife almost exclusively, and same for Mini Midnight, my daughter. Let's Talk Entertainment asks, do you ever go to movie premieres? No, I've never been to one, but I would love to. I'm not near a hub for that sort of thing, but I wish. I've never been to a movie festival, I've never been to a film festival, and I've never been to a premiere, but I would sure love to if I ever get a chance to do it. I'm in Alabama, so premieres are in LA or New York or sometimes Atlanta, and I'm just not close to that, but I would love to do that, and I need to go to a film festival. Thomas E, this is our last question, you guys. What's your opinion on the 4K Blu-ray platform? I know you do more older stuff, and it's slow for them to release older movies on them. Oh, I'm a diehard 4K fan. I love 4K. It's my favorite format. Huge fan. I talk about them. For me, the conversation is never, or I try for it never to be about the delivery system. So if I'm talking about, let's go with Bad News Bears. So I'm talking about Bad News Bears. Like, Imprint puts this out. I want you to know what I think about Bad News Bears. I want you to know that it's out, what you get for your money. So that does often lead the conversation, but I love 4K. I'm a huge 4K fan, and I guess I've not focused enough on that on the channel, I suppose. Like, I haven't done here's my 5 favorite 4K, because I have not up to this point done content that I feel like is really, to me, it feels kind of pandering. Like, is it really my 5 favorite, or is it just something I want you to watch and click? Obey, they live, consume. You know what I mean? So I haven't done that, but I probably should, because I do love the 4K format, and I do have favorites. Wizard of Oz is one of my favorites, and I'm not going to tell you because I need to do a video about it. But I got to do better about that in covering some of my personal favorites. Huge fan of the format. It's for me, it's the closest you can get to being at a theatrical screening of what you're watching. If I watch a 4K for, I think I said in my review for Fulci's Zombie 2, that the print is so good. That 4K presentation for Blue Underground is so good. It's the closest we're ever going to get to being at the first showing on the first day at that movie's debut, 40 years ago. They've taken all the age, all the distance of time away from us, and we get to see it as it was delivered when it was brand new. And I love that aspect. Even better than Blu-ray, man. I love Blu-rays, but I love 4Ks. But I don't lead with, I'm not a format snob. I'd rather you if you're going to watch Fulci's zombie movie, just go watch it. I would prefer you watch the 4K because it's the best presentation. But if you want to stream that, if you want to watch it on some VHS, if you want to watch it on some cable channel, you know, however you watch it, I just want you to watch movies. My goal is for people to excite people about everything that's in cinema history. This is so exciting. So that's my goal. But, you know, it's so funny. When we did buy our 4K TV and a 4K player, we did a video, but Bree and I, we did a video like 3 years ago, I guess, maybe 4. And we were like, we've gone 4K. And someone commented like, well, there goes the channel. Because I don't know. But here we are. We're still talking about it. And clearly 4K did not become our focus. But I could do a better job of talking about it. So, all right, guys, that's going to wrap up our Q&A. Wow, over an hour. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much for submitting your questions. Thank you so much for your time that you spent here with me. However long ago you discovered this channel. Thank you for spending time with us. This means so much. My new goal is to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of 2022. It's totally possible. I look at other channels. Look at Jeff at Films at Home is burning it up, right? Jeff is my friend. I love that guy. I wish him all the best. He's got almost, as of this video, almost 90,000 subscribers. So I know the audience is there. I just want some of those to come over here. I know that the physical media audience is there. Hopefully they'll continue to discover the channel. If you're watching this and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I don't want you to miss anything. I don't want you to just get served what YouTube thinks you want to see. I want you to decide that. So thank you. I appreciate you guys so much. Onward and upward. We'll do another one of these. I'm not going to do another Q&A until 50,000. So the sooner we get there, the sooner we can do another one of these. But it's going to be exciting, and let's enjoy the ride. Guys, thanks. Take care. Until next time, I will catch you later.